For more than 3,000 years, the monuments of ancient Egypt have inspired awe with their colossal scale, extraordinary engineering, and singular beauty. Today, most survive as weathered ruins of bare stone, but at their height, they were dazzling masterpieces of polished limestone, brilliant colors, towering statues, and gleaming gold that reflected the wealth of one of history's greatest civilizations. From monumental temples and colossal sculptures to vast pyramids and hidden underground chambers, we'll explore what some of ancient Egypt's greatest megastructures looked like at the peak of their glory. For more than 3,000 years, the colossal temples of Abu Simbel have watched over the Nile from the edge of the Nubian desert. Today, they stand as monuments of weathered sandstone carved into the cliffs. But what most visitors see is only a faded shadow of their original appearance. When they were built more than 3,000 years ago in the 11th century BC, every surface was covered in brilliant colors, polished stone, and gleaming gold. The four colossal seated statues of Ramesses, each over 20 meters tall, were not originally bare sandstone. Their faces, crowns, garments, and thrones were covered in vibrant mineral pigments that transformed the mountain into an enormous work of art. It was here, on the western bank of the Nile in southern Egypt, that an entire hillside was transformed into one of the grandest monuments ever created by human hands. Abu Simbel was not built from stacked blocks of stone like the pyramids. Instead, the temples were carved directly into a solid sandstone cliff, turning living rock into an engineering masterpiece. Even today, many visitors wonder how the ancient builders achieved such astonishing precision on such a monumental scale. Stepping inside reveals an equally astonishing world. The temple extends more than 60 meters into the mountain through a series of enormous halls flanked by towering pillars or Osirid statues. Every wall is covered in extraordinarily well-preserved carvings. Originally, these carvings did not have the bare sandstone colors seen today. They were covered in bright pigments of deep red, dark blue, vivid yellow, emerald green, and pure white, which made the temple look less like ancient ruins and more like the interior of a vast sacred palace. Inside the Great Temple, 8 colossal statues of Ramesses II, carved in the likeness of the god Osiris, rise more than 9 meters tall, lining the main hall and creating an imposing procession. Their perfectly symmetrical arrangement and extraordinary craftsmanship demonstrate the remarkable precision achieved by the ancient Egyptians more than 3,000 years ago. One of Abu Simbel's greatest mysteries is its astronomical alignment. Twice a year, around February 22 and October 22, the rising sun penetrates deep into the mountain, traveling more than 60 meters through the temple to illuminate the statues in the inner sanctuary. For just a few minutes, the faces of Ramesses II, Amun-Ra, and Ra-Horakhti glow with a golden light, while the statue of Ptah, the god associated with the underworld, remains deliberately hidden in darkness. Perhaps even more extraordinary is the fact that Abu Simbel nearly disappeared forever beneath the waters of the Nile. During the construction of the Aswan Dam in the 1960s, the rising waters of the newly formed lake threatened to submerge the temples permanently. In one of the largest archaeological rescue missions ever undertaken, engineers carefully cut the entire complex into more than 1,000 massive blocks, some weighing more than 30 tons, before relocating and reconstructing the temples on higher ground, about 60 meters away. The operation preserved the monument while maintaining its remarkable solar alignment with astonishing precision. For more than 2,000 years, generation after generation of Egyptian pharaohs expanded what would become the largest religious complex ever built in the ancient world, spanning more than 200 acres along the east bank of the Nile at Thebes, present-day Luxor. Karnak was far more than a simple temple. It was a vast sacred city with towering pylons, colossal obelisks, enormous courtyards, hidden sanctuaries, sacred lakes, and endless avenues of statues, all dedicated primarily to Amun-Ra, king of the Egyptian gods. Even after thousands of years of erosion and destruction, Karnak remains one of humanity's most astonishing architectural achievements. Approaching Karnak in its prime would have been an unforgettable experience. A magnificent avenue lined with hundreds of ram-headed sphinxes stretched toward the monumental entrance, guiding pilgrims into a world designed to dazzle the senses. Enormous entrance pylons, once painted in brilliant reds, blues, yellows, and golds, towered over the crowds like artificial mountains, while huge ceremonial banners fluttered from towering wooden masts. Unlike the weathered sandstone seen today, nearly every wall, column, and statue at Karnak was painted in vivid colors, transforming the temple into a dazzling spectacle of color under Egypt's bright sun. At the heart of the complex stands the legendary Great Hypostyle Hall, one of the most magnificent architectural spaces ever created before the modern era. Covering more than 4,500 square meters, the hall holds 134 colossal columns arranged in perfect rows, the tallest of which rises nearly 21 meters. Their capitals resemble blooming papyrus, symbolizing the marshes from which, according to Egyptian mythology, life first emerged. Every inch of these immense columns was covered in colorful hieroglyphs and carved reliefs recording victories, religious rituals, royal ceremonies, and offerings to the gods, creating what must have looked like an enormous stone forest.
Karnak also housed some of the tallest obelisks ever raised in ancient Egypt. These unique granite monoliths, transported hundreds of kilometers from Aswan, were carved with astonishing precision and raised vertically without any modern machinery. The most famous, commissioned by Queen Hatshepsut, still stands nearly 30 meters tall and weighs more than 300 tons. Covered in fine inscriptions celebrating her reign, its polished granite surface reflected sunlight with an intensity visible from miles away. One of Karnak's most fascinating features was its extraordinary alignment with the sky. The temple's main axis was carefully oriented to align with the sunrise on the winter solstice, allowing sunlight to illuminate sacred areas at specific times of the year. The entire complex was designed according to precise religious and astronomical principles, reflecting the Egyptian belief that their temples represented the very structure of the universe. Each expansion of the temple carefully preserved this sacred geometry despite centuries of continuous construction. Although much smaller than nearby Karnak, Luxor Temple shares the same magnificent architectural style and was connected to Karnak by the famous Avenue of Sphinxes. Like Karnak, Luxor Temple originally dazzled visitors with towering entrance pylons, colossal statues, soaring columns, polished stone floors, and walls completely covered with colorful hieroglyphs and carved reliefs. Visitors entered through an imposing gateway flanked by enormous 15-meter statues of Ramesses II, along with two huge obelisks carved from solid pink granite. Originally, both obelisks stood side by side in front of the first pylon, their polished surfaces reflecting the Egyptian sun. Today, only one remains at Luxor, while its twin was moved to Paris in the 19th century and now stands in the Place de la Concorde. Inside the temple, visitors passed through an impressive succession of colossal courtyards, towering colonnades, and sacred chambers leading to the sanctuary. One of the most spectacular features is the Great Colonnade of Amenhotep III, made up of 14 enormous papyrus-shaped columns rising more than 15 meters tall. Their capitals resemble papyrus flowers in full bloom, symbolizing creation and renewal, while every surface is covered with beautifully carved reliefs depicting festivals, religious ceremonies, and offerings to the gods. Freshly completed, the entire interior would have glowed with vibrant colors. The polished stone floors reflected sunlight streaming through the entrances, and the air was filled with incense, music, and the chanting of priests. Standing on the Giza Plateau at the edge of the Sahara Desert, the Great Sphinx is one of the most recognizable monuments on Earth and one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Carved directly from a single limestone outcrop, the monument measures about 74 meters long and more than 18 meters tall. According to the prevailing archaeological theory, it was created during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BC. However, an alternative theory suggests the Sphinx could be thousands of years older, dating back to the end of the last ice age, which would make it not only Egypt's oldest monument, but also the last surviving relic of a forgotten prehistoric civilization. In this alternative interpretation, the Sphinx was already ancient long before the rise of dynastic Egypt, before hieroglyphs, and before the first pharaohs ruled the Nile Valley.
Perhaps the most intriguing part of this theory concerns the Sphinx's original appearance. Several researchers have suggested the monument originally did not have a human head, but rather that of a jackal resembling the god Anubis, a sacred guardian long before Egyptian religion took its later form. Others argue it originally represented a lion, symbolically linked to the constellation Leo around the year 10,500 BC through the precession of the equinoxes. While these interpretations differ, both propose that the current human face was carved much later, once the original head had deteriorated over thousands of years. One of the strongest arguments often made for this theory concerns the monument's unusual proportions. The current head appears noticeably small compared to the massive lion's body, much smaller than other known Egyptian sphinxes. Supporters of the recarving hypothesis argue that a larger jackal or lion head would have better matched the body's proportions and would have required far more stone than the current head. According to this interpretation, later Egyptian artisans recarved only the damaged upper portion into the shape of a pharaoh, leaving the original body largely intact. Geology has also played a key role in the debate. Some geologists argue that the enclosure surrounding the Sphinx shows deep vertical erosion patterns more consistent with prolonged rainfall than with wind-blown desert sand. Such intense rainfall did occur in Egypt during the African humid period, thousands of years before the traditionally accepted construction date. Supporters of this theory believe this suggests the monument was exposed long before the Old Kingdom, surviving the dramatic climate shifts that ended the Ice Age. However, most Egyptologists interpret the erosion differently and maintain that the evidence supports an origin in the 4th dynasty. Whatever its true age, there's no doubt the Sphinx looked radically different in antiquity. Beside the Great Sphinx stood the pyramids in their original splendor, transformed into dazzling monuments unlike anything seen today. Instead of rough, weathered stone, they were cased in millions of blocks of white Tura limestone, fitted with precision and polished to a finish so smooth that they reflected sunlight and gleamed brilliantly across the desert. Their capstones may have been covered in electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver, creating a radiant beacon at dawn and dusk. Together with the brightly colored Sphinx, the brightly colored valley temples, ceremonial causeways, and statues,
The Giza Plateau was not a landscape of ancient ruins, but a magnificent ceremonial complex showcasing the extraordinary engineering, art, and power of ancient Egypt. Set beneath the towering limestone cliffs of Deir el-Bahari on the west bank of the Nile, the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut is one of ancient Egypt's most extraordinary architectural works. Built in the 15th century BC for Pharaoh Hatshepsut, one of the few women to rule Egypt as king, the temple broke away from the traditional design of earlier monuments. Instead of towering pylons and enclosed courtyards, it was built as a series of elegant terraces rising directly from the desert floor, blending so seamlessly with the surrounding cliffs that the landscape itself became part of the architecture. Even today, its striking appearance makes it one of Egypt's most recognizable temples. The temple was designed by Senenmut, Hatshepsut's trusted architect, whose innovative vision created a monument unmatched in the ancient world. 3 enormous terraces, connected by wide central ramps, rise toward the sanctuary, while long rows of elegant square columns create a remarkable symmetry. Originally, the bright limestone walls gleamed in the sunlight, and every surface was decorated with painted reliefs in vivid reds, blues, greens, yellows, and golds. The temple stood in dramatic contrast to the dark cliffs behind it, creating an unforgettable sight for anyone approaching from the Nile. During the winter solstice, the rising sun aligns perfectly with the temple's central axis, sending its rays deep into the sanctuary to illuminate the sacred statues of Amun-Ra and Hatshepsut. This extraordinary astronomical design symbolized Hatshepsut's claim to be the divine daughter of Amun-Ra and that her right to rule came directly from the gods. Among the temple's most fascinating features are the beautifully preserved reliefs documenting some of the greatest achievements of Hatshepsut's reign. One of the most famous depicts her legendary expedition to the mysterious land of Punt, showing Egyptian ships returning with exotic animals, rare trees, incense, ivory, gold, and luxury goods. These scenes form one of the most detailed visual records of long-distance trade from the ancient world and demonstrate the wealth and influence Egypt held during Hatshepsut's rule. Archaeological evidence suggests that the temple's front courtyard once held ornamental gardens with ponds, flowering plants, and frankincense and myrrh trees imported from Punt, making it one of the oldest documented botanical gardens. Colossal statues of Hatshepsut adorned the terraces, depicting her in the traditional form of a pharaoh, complete with the royal false beard, underscoring her full authority as king of Egypt. Sacred chapels dedicated to Amun, Hathor, and Anubis were built within the complex, making it both a royal monument and an important religious sanctuary. Although later rulers tried to erase Hatshepsut's memory by destroying many of her statues and removing her name from inscriptions, the temple survived as one of Egypt's greatest masterpieces. Today, its elegant terraces, towering colonnades, and spectacular setting remain a testament to the ambition of one history's most remarkable female pharaoh. Located about 30 kilometers south of modern-day Cairo, the necropolis of Saqqara is one of Egypt's oldest and most important archaeological sites. For more than 3,000 years, Saqqara served as the main cemetery of the ancient capital of Memphis, and it holds an extraordinary collection of pyramids, royal tombs, underground chambers, temples, and monuments spanning nearly the entire history of Egyptian civilization. While Giza is famous for its colossal pyramids, Saqqara preserves the earliest stages of that construction and reveals how Egyptian architecture evolved into some of the grandest monuments ever built. At the heart of the necropolis stands the Step Pyramid of Djoser, built during the 27th century BC for the pharaoh Djoser. It was designed by the legendary architect Imhotep, who transformed traditional mud brick mastaba tombs into a revolutionary 6-tiered pyramid rising more than 60 meters above the desert.
Hidden beneath the step pyramid lies an immense underground labyrinth like nothing else in Egypt. More than 5 kilometers of tunnels branch through the bedrock, leading to hundreds of chambers, storerooms, and passageways extending nearly 30 meters below the surface. At the center lies Djoser's granite burial chamber, while the surrounding galleries once held thousands of stone vessels carved from alabaster, diorite, granite, schist, and other precious stones. Many of these extraordinary vessels were already centuries old when they were buried, suggesting they were prized royal heirlooms preserved for eternity.
One of Saqqara's most mysterious monuments is the Serapeum, an enormous underground complex hidden beneath the desert. Inside, long galleries once held gigantic granite sarcophagi carved from massive stone blocks. Many weighed more than 70 tons, with some estimates placing the heaviest at nearly 100 tons. Their interiors were polished with astonishing precision, and even the lids alone weighed several tons. Transporting these enormous stone coffins through narrow underground passages and positioning them with such exactness remains one of engineering's greatest mysteries. Saqqara is also home to hundreds of beautifully decorated mastaba tombs belonging to nobles, priests, royal officials, architects, physicians, and military commanders. Their walls preserve some of the finest reliefs in the ancient world, depicting farming, fishing, hunting, music, shipbuilding, feasts, religious ceremonies, and daily life with extraordinary realism. These scenes stand as an unmatched record of Egyptian civilization, revealing details about clothing, tools, agriculture, trade, architecture, and social customs that would otherwise have been lost forever. In many cases, traces of the original red, blue, green, yellow, and black pigments still survive, offering a glimpse of how colorful these tombs once looked. In recent decades, Saqqara has become one of the most productive archaeological sites in the world. Excavations have uncovered dozens of previously unknown burial shafts, descending more than 30 meters underground, containing hundreds of sealed coffins, beautifully painted sarcophagi, gilded funerary masks, statues, amulets, and remarkably well-preserved mummies. Standing on the west bank of the Nile near ancient Thebes, the Colossi of Memnon rank among the largest and most iconic statues ever created in ancient Egypt. Carved from massive blocks of quartzite sandstone during the reign of Amenhotep III in the 14th century BC, each colossal seated figure stands about 18 meters tall, nearly 21 meters including its pedestal, and weighs roughly 720 tons. Though they appear isolated today, the statues originally guarded the entrance to Amenhotep III's vast mortuary temple, once the largest temple complex in Egypt before it was destroyed over centuries by earthquakes, Nile floods, and the reuse of its stone. The statues depict Amenhotep III seated on his throne with finely carved royal regalia, while smaller figures representing members of his family are carved beside his legs. Remarkably, the quartzite used to carve them came from quarries near modern-day Cairo, about 675 kilometers to the north. Transporting blocks of this size over such an enormous distance without wheels, cranes, or modern machinery remains one of ancient Egypt's greatest engineering achievements. Most archaeologists believe the statues were hauled overland to the Nile on massive sledges, then floated south on specially built barges during the annual flood season. The statues gained worldwide fame after an earthquake in 27 BC cracked the northern Colossus. It's said that at dawn, the damaged stone emitted a mysterious humming sound as it warmed in the morning air, leading Greek and Roman visitors to believe the statue represented the mythical hero Memnon, greeting his mother Eos, goddess of the dawn. Even after more than 3,000 years, the Colossi of Memnon remain an impressive testament to the immense scale, engineering mastery, and artistic ambition of ancient Egypt. The monuments of ancient Egypt have endured for thousands of years, but what we see today is only a fraction of their original magnificence. There are dozens of magnificent sites across Egypt we couldn't cover in this video. These extraordinary structures represented the height of engineering, art, and ambition in the ancient world. Every new archaeological discovery reveals details that bring us closer to understanding what these legendary monuments truly looked like at their peak. Yet the mystery of how some of these magnificent structures were actually built continues to intrigue. Long before recorded history, it's possible that advanced ancient civilizations existed, capable of building gigantic megalithic structures that would still challenge us today. It seems they raised enormous stone blocks weighing thousands of tons and stacked them with near-laser precision using methods we still can't fully explain. Many of these blocks remain difficult to lift even with modern cranes, making their achievements seem even more extraordinary. They also shaped some of the hardest stones on Earth into monuments that are mathematically precise and seemingly flawless. This leaves us wondering who these builders really were and how they accomplished what seems impossible. Were they simply primitive societies, or did they possess a forgotten technology now lost to the sands of time? Explore the evidence pointing to an ancient, global, and technologically sophisticated civilization that may once have dominated the planet. Its builders created gigantic structures whose ruins still survive today. Discover more in our ebook, Prehistoric Megastructures, a nearly 500-page volume packed with images and in-depth analysis of some of the most astonishing and unexplained ancient structures ever found. Inside, you'll explore monuments that appear to have been built with advanced technology from a forgotten era. The ebook is available now at a limited-time discount. Grab the offer before it ends.